Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of
The Horror
Huns. I am Kieran, and this is,
Grace. Hi, guys.
and we are getting our horror on. And Grace, where are we off to today?
Well, we're somewhere very close to home today. We're heading to Enfields, which is actually my ends. And we're going to be talking about the Enfield Poltergeist.
Yeah, we're going to be going back to August 1977 to see what was actually going on. And by the end of it, you'll have our thoughts and what we actually think happened. So without further ado, we are the Horror Huns, and we have our cocktails, and we are ready to cheers.
Cheers, hun.
What are you drinking, hun?
Cheers. So, I'm having a sex on the beach. And I'm drinking out of my little coupe, and I've got a bit of passion fruit floating around in there.
You've gone all out. Well, I'm having a pink passion star martini.
Oh, delicious. Let's have a look.
Look at that.
Oh, that looks so good.
This is filled with vodka, raspberry, purple passion fruit juice, and vanilla flavoring.
Oh, delicious. Guzzle that down.
Oh, it's so juicy.
I think to start, we might need to introduce some of our guest stars in the background.
So this is the Hodgkins family. That's correct, right?
Yeah, the Hodgkins family. And I think it was in 1977. They were living in Green Lane in Enfield in a kind of council house. And they started to experience some strange things.
So we have Peggy the mum.
Yeah, Peggy. And then we have Margaret and Janet, and they were the two sisters. Margaret was the older sister, and they also had a little brother called Billy, I believe his name was.
The main focus is really the two girls.
Well, yeah, they were the ones that were experiencing most of the strange activity that was happening. So at the time, there was a couple of different things going on. They were hearing weird noises in the house. They were seeing things being thrown around the house.
So when did you first hear this story?
I first heard this story when I moved to Enfield, because I feel like when I actually said to you, I'm moving to Enfield, you were like, oh, you're going to be near the Enfield Poltergeist. And this was like 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I remember looking it up and Googling and recognizing the pictures, because there's lots of pictures of it on, if you search it, because apparently it's one of Britain's most documented poltergeist.
It's our equivalent to Amityville.
Well, yeah, exactly. So it got a lot of press at the time. So I remember being quite disturbed when I looked that up and realised I was moving around the corner.
So that was your neighbours.
Yeah, my neighbours. Yeah. How about you?
So this is actually really crazy. So I first heard of this story when I was 5 or 6. And I remember I was watching a TV programme on Channel 4. And this is back when you only had 1 to 4 channels. And I remember it was on a Friday night. This is how much this story stuck in my head. I was very young, on a Friday night around 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. with my family just watching. And then the show was called Strange But True. And I remember that they did the whole thing, and they actually had the recording. And all I remember to this day is the bit where they played a voice that was captured from Janet, and that, I'm not lying, I did not sleep that night. I was petrified.
Is this the voice of a dead man?
And I fell asleep and I died in a chair.
Because it was that...
Bill was coming to get you!
Exactly. And like just thinking of something like that, and I remember I was just so young, and that was probably one of the first things I'd ever watched or seen about a ghost, or not hearing the term poltergeist.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even in the UK, in the UK, you never hear about a ghost story that's had so many individual people having the same story. It's just crazy how many people had a sighting of this poltergeist.
Yeah. So if we go back to August 1977, you've got this woman who her husband's left her for another woman. She's been left with the kids. She can't afford anything. She's barely making ends meet. And then one random night, all they start doing is the kids start hearing in the back bedroom or the back room noises, and the mum comes up, you know, there she is, old Peggy, in a proper North London accent. Oi, you lot, keep it down, like that. And then
got a dressing gown on.
Threatening them, saying, if you don't get to bed, I'm gonna knock you one. And then they were like, it's not us. The two girls were like, it's not us. And then that's when they all saw the chest of drawers just go flying towards the door on its own. And I think they couldn't explain it, and they kept hearing noises. And then the next day they decided her brother lived 2 doors down, so they ran to there. And that's when the brother and the wife went next door, and that's when they started seeing things for themselves as well. And they were like, what the hell? And then that's like any responsible person, you know, you call the police. When something doesn't make sense and you're scared, you call the police. They called the police. And I think this is what really stands out for this case compared to a lot of stories, is that you can easily put this down to like, oh, so they're faking it. But now you brought in another family who are still connected, but another side who witnessed something. But now you've also brought the police in, who also witnessed a chair going across the floor. So you can't tell me that all these different people are in on it.
Yeah,
so,
and the police report says about the chair, so the police have an official police report. Then they've been kind of filmed by the BBC explaining what they saw. And I remember the female police officer saying that the chair moved on its own, and she thought, oh, maybe there's like a slant in the floorboard. So she decides to get a marble and place it down, and the marble stays still. And she's like, okay, something weird is going on. So yeah, that's when you start to think, okay, something weird's going on. And I think that's at the point where I think they decided to call
the Daily Mirror first.
Oh, the Daily Mirror first. Yeah. Okay, so they were next.
They called the Daily Mirror because they were like, we don't know what's going on, we need help. Who's going to help us? So the mum,
and they want their 50 quid cash. They want their 50 quid story cash. So of course they're going to ring up the Daily Mail. It's like me, if I get something, you know, like a mouldy bag of rice from somewhere, I'm going to tweet it to the Sun and see if I can get 5 quid for my story.
If you find a frog in your lettuce bag.
Exactly. If you find a frog in your lettuce bag, that's it. You call in the Sun, you call in the Daily Mail, the Daily Mirror, trying to get your quids in.
I think it's when the Daily Mirror turned up, it literally just turned it into like a circus show, because like cameras turned up with reporters. But you know, the mum was so scared, like when they turned up, and she was just like, this is too much. And then that's when I think the Society of Physical Research, Psychical Research, that's when they then got involved. But just before that, when the Daily Mirror turned up, the reporters were like walking around doing their own investigation, like watching the family, and then all of a sudden that's when like bits of Lego just started flying across the room, and one flew and hit him, and it actually left the mark. And that's when they were like, no, something is up now. So then they've reached out, and then that's when they sent Morris, good old Morris, who I think every kind of depiction of Morris has got it so right. It's just like that crazy bushy hair with the big glasses.
Yeah.
Every kind of depiction I've seen of him in every sort of form, they've just got it spot on.
He's a character. He's a massive character. And do you know who he was reminding me of? The dad Maurice in Beauty and the Beast.
So I thought that as well. I thought that.
Because I think his name is spelt Maurice, but they always, because he's Cockney, they call him Morris.
Morris Close.
So Morris gets involved. And
but isn't it weird that Morris also, was it a year before, his daughter had died, and her name was also Janet. So already you've got like an odd...
There's a connection there, yeah.
So he then comes round, and then with the help, and he calls on a guy called Guy Wayfair, and they stayed for like around 14 months trying to investigate everything.
Yeah, and I think during this period of time, just loads of crazy things are popping off. I mean, the thing that really scared me, and I mean, obviously it started with voices and it started with little bangings on the wall. As you say, we had the Lego and stuff. But then things started to escalate. And what scared me, which I didn't actually realise happened until watching the Channel 4 documentary, was Janet's bed was against the radiator, and it was like a fireplace, like it was right behind you. And it was literally like that, but her bed was against it. It was obviously out of action. It wasn't working. And she heard scratching coming from inside it, and I was like, fuck, like, that is terrifying.
Yeah. Imagine just laying there and just hearing noises like scratching, voices coming from in there, and then all of a sudden, but then the grating actually forced its way off. But I think that actually happened, like, that was like towards the end of this thing, because so when you hear the term because this was automatically after Morris got involved, he ruled this is a poltergeist. When you think of the term poltergeist, what do you think?
I think of somebody in the TV, like in the film Poltergeist. You know, when it's like, yeah, when that little girl's, you know, looking at the TV and then she gets sucked in, and it just, you know that things are going to happen, like upside down chairs and all the knives being taken out of the cupboard and thrown across the floor, and just weird household creepy things happening. And that's what I think about.
So poltergeist, like, it actually means like mischievous and noisy spirit. So someone that likes to make
sounds like me and you.
We're definitely going to be poltergeists, lolloping around in a sauna and steam room and in a pool.
With the noise we make, can't be scratching.
Lost your nose.
Yeah, exactly.
When they think it's the wave machine.
That'll be like whipping of towels. Which.
And you're like, whoops, slowly coming up. But yeah, so that's actually the term for like a poltergeist. It's like a noisy or mischievous spirit, apparently. But other things that started, and they also, things that poltergeists like to do is like when they've taken presence somewhere, they like to hide things. So things suddenly start going missing, but appear somewhere else. And apparently it can last for months, and like bad smells will start appearing, like awful smells. So, and that's kind of not one, because when I thought of poltergeist, I just think of like evil. So yeah. But then like tormenting people, like, get out my house, which is what I'll probably sound like when I'm one. Get out my house.
Get out of here. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
But yeah, so the Daily Mail actually reported this. This was on the front page of the Daily Mail. It was actually called The House of Strange Happenings.
Oh, wow.
Which pretty much sums it up.
It does, because there's a lot of strange things going on.
Yeah.
And then, you know, on the whole poltergeist thing, one of the things I found really interesting is that apparently, like, poltergeists choose a centre of the poltergeist, which often is one person in the family that they kind of control. And that often happens to kind of like prepubescent girls. So
adolescents.
Just, you know, adolescents, yeah. And they're just, you know, going through puberty or whatever. And they're raging with their hormones. These poor girls have got enough going on, and then they've got a poltergeist to worry about.
I know, right?
Like, if you haven't got enough to worry about when you're a teenage girl, so they've got these crazy poltergeists. And
pulling off the bed sheets and like.
I know. I think I had a poltergeist when I was 15. But do you know what I mean?
Well, who knows what you got up to in those days? Whipping off your bed sheets.
So but yeah, I think that, like,
and then so like another reporter was sent in. Her name was Roz Norris or Morris. Roz, we'll just call her.
Roz.
Basically, she was like a reporter who there wasn't a lot going on, so the papers basically said, "Look, this is going on there. Go off." And I think she turned up thinking this is just going to be a load of nonsense. And then when she got there and she saw everything that was going on, like she saw stuff happening, that's when it was a bit like, okay, this is crazy. And these kind of small things, like the throwing of Lego and the knocks on the door, walls and stuff, that happened until October. And so you think from August to October that continued in time for Halloween. then that's when the activity started to escalate. Then that was in October, like, and that's when that fireplace came ripping off from behind the bed, which to me, that's it. I mean, I don't know what I would do if that was me. So
yeah, and you always say to yourself, you know, I'd be out of there, I'd be gone. But it's like, if you've got no money and no place to go, you're absolutely trapped.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing that then happened, I don't know what part of the timeline it happened on, is when Janet kind of got thrown out of her bedroom and dragged down the stairs by the poltergeist. We think it was by the poltergeist, and you know, they found her at the bottom of the stairs, and they had like a recording of it, like an audio recording of it. So that was terrifying. And
yeah, because by late October that they were at breaking point, and that's when Morris decided to send them on a good old holiday, you know, by the Englishy, Clacton-on-Sea little party.
A nice old jolly for their fish and chips.
Some sausage and batter. But then when they came back, that's when it actually started to get a lot worse, and that's when, like, she was pulled out of the bed, out the door swung open, she was dragged down the stairs. But then that's when Morris started to try and challenge the spirit, and that's when this entity threw a box at his head.
Are you having a game with me?
Suddenly there was a shh.
Right.
Oh, crumbs.
As I asked the question, are you having a game with me? It threw the cardboard box and the pillow right at my face.
The box from the corner of the room took off, flew across the bed and hit me on the forehead and knocked me backwards.
Did you hear about that?
No, I didn't hear about that.
A cardboard box went flying at his head. And you're thinking, you're lucky it was just a cardboard box, but I suppose when something's flying at you at that full speed, then anything can hurt.
I know, and it's also the shock. You might have got whiplash from it. You don't
know.
You
will whip your hair back and forth. Your neck will go as well.
You don't know what poor Morris went through. Yeah.
But I think one thing to note though, and I think it's the case with a lot of young kids, is that they like to play up, and I think it's because there was a certain expectation from the press. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? So they started to play up to it. And I think that's when a lot of people thought this was a hoax, because I think people were thinking, no, it's just them. They're throwing things, they're putting things on. But I think that Morris actually caught him out. Like, he couldn't find his tape recorder once. And then he asked Janet where it was, and she was like, oh, the poltergeist said he'd hidden it or something, but she forgot to realise it was still recording when she was hiding it.
So when he found it, he heard her going, come on, let's hide his tape recorder. And
exactly.
This is the thing. I mean, it's really hard because we've watched the Channel 4 documentary, and that has flashbacks between, you know, it's got reenactments of it, it's got the original tape recordings, and then it's got Janet and her sister, what's her name, Margaret, as adults speaking about their experiences. You've got the BBC one, which aired at the time, which uses all the footage that Maurice took and like interviews with the girls. And then you've got the Conjuring 2 movie as well. And some parts of all of them are so terrifying that you believe it's true. But then other parts just make you think this is a load of nonsense, because you think, if something that terrifying was happening to you, even as a child, would you be sat there laughing about it? Would you be making jokes? And that's why I don't get it.
Like, I don't know if that's a coping mechanism, or if that's them knowing that they're playing up. Because when you see that recording, which we'll insert now, she's just smiling the whole time. Like, she just sat there looking at her sister, smiling away. And it's just,
and it looks like they're having a jolly old wind up.
Like, it's like when me and you get together and I've done something and I'm waiting for that person to find them, like going like that, and I'm just sitting there like
Yeah, exactly. Us gossiping in the sauna about our weekends. That's what they look like. They're having a jolly. And that's where I'm just like, I get that they're kids, but then I've seen kids being scared. And they don't act like that. They're scared. It's like, even when you're little and you have a nightmare about something, you don't joke about it. You're scared. That's it. You're done.
Unless it's just a way for them to cope.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I mean, I don't think I'd be coping like that. But then again, if it's just become normal day to day, remember that it's been August, September, October, November. Like, this is like 3 whole months or 4 whole months now. Like, if it becomes like normal, you're just like, oh, here it comes again, knocking away on my back doors.
And I think at this point, I mean, they've done some interviews, and you know, you see that actually Janet starts to channel the poltergeist by speaking on their behalf in their voice.
Yeah, so this is now coming to. So in late November, she started drawing really disturbing images. That's what caused like concern, because they were like, what's going on? And then she started having fits and getting very violent. So she would actually need to be given like Valium. Is it Valium to like calm her down?
Yeah, to calm her down.
And then be restrained, basically. But could you imagine being restrained and be given Valium, staying in that house, knowing that a spirit is coming? Like,
well, you'd want to be in full control. I would want to take sleeping pills if I thought a spirit was in the house. I
think Morris got his brother to come in and help with the investigation, and that's when he could hear some noises, but Janet was asleep. But then when he went in, he actually saw she was one leg in the air, head down, dangling, but she was completely out. And that's what he reported. Yeah. So it's a bit like, God, a lot of these people are like reporting a lot of different things. But then that is when she was then dragged down, head first down the stairs and down to the living room. And then on the 14th of December, that was like a pivotal point, because that was the day she started her first period. So that was also a way to try and for a spirit to like attach itself to a young girl going through that kind of change, a big moment in her life. Like, but yeah, so like another thing to notice that around this time as well, 2 separate passers-by who lived near saw her floating around the room. They just happened to look up and they saw her floating around. Did you see it? The
Lego blocks are meant to be floating around, so she's going woo in a circle around her living room with the Lego blocks. I was thinking, oh my gosh, it sounds like something out of like...
lady saw it.
Yeah.
And she apparently saw her going up like that as well, like rising. And the lollipop lady was like, let me go. And so she decided to go back to her own house, get on her bed and try and do it herself. And she was like, no, that's not really. It's like, how do you think you're going to float like that, love?
Well, that's another thing as well that I've got from watching the documentaries and stuff, is that a lot of the people that had witnessed events were like, well, I went and tried it myself and I couldn't do it. And I'm like at one point, a piece of like factual evidence was like, the neighbour, what was his name? Vic was an electrician, and he was like, yeah, as an electrician, I know that walls can't make those noises. And I'm like, okay, so because Vic the electrician says that walls can't make those noises, it must be a poltergeist. It's just like, you know, these little bits people add in at the end, like, well, I tried it at home. It's like, yeah, exactly. Okay, I've tried Pilates at home, I can't do it. It doesn't mean it's a poltergeist.
I tried sticking my leg behind my head. They make me a Power Ranger.
Exactly.
But then I think, so then the most eerie turn was when they suddenly noticed a dog barking. So this is when like the whole recording started. So they tried to see if they could capture next what would happen. So the barking then changed to a voice, and then it was a deep, gruff voice, and reporters turned up to like say, right, let's talk to the spirit then. And they all just thought it was Janet. So they were just like, Janet, is it you? And even when you watch the recordings, like one thing I was like, is it her what's going on with her mouth? So are you playing with your teeth, woman? Or like, she's just going like that. Like, and it's like, are you doing stuff like going like, like that? You know what I mean?
What are you doing, mate? Do you feel it vibrating as if it was sort of...
No, like someone
what?
Got their hand on the back of my neck like that.
How many voices are there?
600.
600 the voices.
I know the joke.
How many really are there, Margaret?
I think so far we've had 10 sensible voices.
Is anybody there?
No.
Who's there?
Doctor.
And then
I mean, I'm just convinced that all of it is her. The voices is her. It's coming out of her mouth. Like, there's all this things like, a 12-year-old couldn't possibly, do that. And I'm like, what about all these 12-year-olds doing Gollum?
Because they said to make that noise, it needs to come from the larynx, but to be able to do that sort of noise, apparently it came from just above or below the larynx. And if you were to do that for a certain amount of time, like the reporter tried it, and she said she had a sore throat for 2 days, and Janet was doing it for like hours and hours, and she said that the voice was coming from behind her and it wasn't actually coming from her. So they actually did put water in her mouth, tape her mouth up, and the voice was still coming through. And they even removed the tape, and then she spat the water out, which is one thing I didn't realize until I watched this documentary. I thought the Conjuring movie added that in. So I was very like, oh, so something must have been happening then if they taped it. I mean, we didn't see any evidence of the taping of the mouth on that thing, because we just saw her playing, her and her sister looking at each other laughing, and the sister's there, and all of a sudden she goes, hey. And the sister's like,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that they say happened, but it's like, if you'd spent 14 months at a house, documenting a poltergeist, would you not film it? Why have they? There's only like 1 or 2 videos. It's just very odd.
But then I think towards the end, this is when it got very crazy, was when she was able to say, like, there was all these names, but one name stuck out in particular, and it was Bill. And she was able to talk saying, I went blind and I had a hemorrhage and I died in that chair, and this is my house, basically. And the dog was barking as well. And then they ended up, a guy called Terry, who was Bill's son, actually reached out to her and said, my dad did die. My mum went to the shops for 10 minutes, came back, and he had died. He had had a hemorrhage and had died in that chair. So that was actually
that terrified me when I watched that doc, because I was like, this is bullshit. And then it got to that bit in the documentary and I was like, oh my gosh, this is mad. And he said it even sounded like his dad's voice.
Yeah.
Like, that's just mental.
But then what got even more worrying was that they said that it might not be his dad, but another entity impersonating the dad. So another spirit altogether, taking on that persona, pretending, which to me, it's like you've already got this layer of some old git trying to like force you out the house, and now to tell me that you think something else is pretending to be him, is like, dealing with him is bad enough. I do not need someone else impersonating this old blind man. I mean, for a blind man, he knows how to find me enough.
I know, and this is where I was getting
everywhere. He knows how to find the Lego bricks for a blind man.
This is where it gets really Hollywood, in the sense of, like, in The Conjuring 2, they then make that spirit the nun from one of the other Conjuring films.
This is what I want to talk about next.
Yeah.
We'll get onto this. So, in July 1978, Janet was admitted to hospital for testing, because they were like, let's just make sure everything with her is fine. And she went to hospital. All the tests came back clear. She was all fine. She was all good. There was nothing wrong with her. Because she always felt that there was something wrong with her, maybe, that's why this kept happening. But overall, everyone's accounts of what had happened to this day has stayed the same. Like, no one has changed their story in the slightest. And money, so much money was even offered to them, and they never accepted it, which is crazy, because you'd think for a woman who's down and out, like for the mum who's like barely making ends meet, her hand would have been out, like yeah, but apparently they never took any money. So that's another telltale sign that, like, maybe there was more to this than just fakery. But onto what you were saying with Ed and Lorraine Warren. So they did actually go to visit Enfield, but that the movie made it sound like they were fully involved. They turned up for one day, looked around, and that was it, and they were gone. That was all they did. They hardly spent any time there, but the movie made it sound like they were fully invested, and it was like, no, they weren't. It was Maurice who was the one who was like there, like getting cardboard boxes chucked at his head, while Ed and Lorraine, I mean, I don't know if you know too much about Ed and Lorraine, like, they are 100% real. They did it all there. investigations together. Like their line of work is fascinating, of everything that they've discovered and done, like from Amityville to the Perron family, which the first Conjuring movie is based on. It's like crazy, like all the stuff that they've got. Annabelle.
Yeah, we all know about Annabelle.
Yeah, so the movie portrayed, like, this is where I find, like, obviously they could have just told this movie as it was without bringing the nun into it, or bringing the crooked man. Like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, it added an extra element of fear, because that crooked man in that tent, when he popped out, F my life, that was scaring the hand around the corner.
That terrified me. When he put his head in it, he was watching it, and it was like, I am a crooked man in a crooked house, and then this face pops out like that. I shat myself. It was so scary. But yeah, as you say, I mean, you know, it's the second highest grossing horror film ever after The Exorcist. I think original horror film after The Exorcist. So they know what they're doing in Hollywood.
Yeah,
they know what they're doing with Ed and Lorraine.
Yeah, it's true.
They know how to milk that tea.
I know, like, it's sad because Lorraine, I think, only died last year. But like, yeah, she's been on. She went and met the real sisters again recently. During the making of this movie, because the two real sisters, Margaret and Janet, they were invited to the set to go and have a look, and they were just like, oh my god, this is so weird. It's like exactly the same. And because the mum stayed in the house afterwards, she weren't moving anywhere. Bill or no Bill, he wasn't getting her out.
They were mates. They were having cups of tea by the end of it.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Like, my name's Bill. She was like, yeah, well, my name's Peggy. But yeah, so it's crazy. Like but to think you wouldn't have needed. You had enough material to work with for like that movie without those extra elements added. But because they know that they wanted to expand, like apparently they're going to be making a Crooked Man movie. So, I mean,
they just plant those seeds. They create a few characters in one film. They plant the seeds.
They did with the nun. They planted the nun in the. They did it in one movie. Oh, in Annabelle Creation. That's when you first saw the nun, I think, because the guy in the picture, he goes to her, who's that? And then the girl's like, who? And then when he moves it, you just see kind of outline of her face. I could be wrong, but I believe that was the first instance. Then she pops up again, and then she gets her whole movie. I mean, she's terrifying, that scary nun. Nun's supposed to be nice.
Well, yeah, exactly.
The way that they changed it to make it more Hollywood. But I mean, they still kept the big main elements in, like how the first instance happened. The chest of drawers going across, the police coming in, they included a real police was that the real police footage they showed? Or?
I don't think it was the real police footage, but they then re-recorded it. We recreated it, but with a 4x4 camera and made it. Yeah. And
then when they saw the chair going across, the reenactment of the interview.
And then running over to the neighbour's house and everything, it was spot on.
Yeah, and even they touched on the fact that they, Janet, faking things like throwing plates around to make it look like it was a demon thing, but then there was a bit more of a thing to make it look like, oh, she's done that because the spirit was saying that she had to, otherwise she'd hurt him. It was like, no, they were making a few things, but they owned up to that. They said, yeah, we were just being kids, you know, it was just how it was, like in amongst it, like we just taking the pee pretty much.
Yeah. But I mean, the bit that in The Conjuring, I thought you couldn't fake that, is when her body's like mangled in the boiler.
Oh my god!
They just pull her out. Oh, it's all right, Janet. And I'm thinking, poor Janet. How the hell did she get mangled up in the pipes like that? You wouldn't be pulling a girl out. You'd have to call the 911 and get the fire services to come and chop you out of that pickle.
I know. Well, do you know what I'm looking forward to? You know, when lockdown's lifted, I cannot wait for us to go on a little Horror Huns tour of Enfield, and we're going to find the house and we're going to go to his grave. We can go visit Bill's grave.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, we're definitely doing it, but I'm pretty terrified. I'm like 50-50. I'm quite scared because, you know, you watch these documentaries and you're like, something happened in that house.
Exactly. And like, spirits don't just need to be contained. They can go for a little walk if they want.
Well, yeah, we don't know. We could end up with old Bill going inside of you at the cemetery.
Bill coming up the rear.
You don't want to get hemorrhage or whatever he had.
He'll give you hemorrhoids. God.
Yeah, I mean that recording of Bill, that was scary.
That was just his voice, because you know what? That was the same voice that they played in that show when I was 9, and it's I will never forget hearing that for the first time, and it terrified me.
Can you do the voice?
Huh?
Can you do the voice?
My name's Bill, and I died in that chair. How's that?
That was really good.
I mean, look, I suppose, because look, if you watch me, does my mouth move? My name's Bill, and I died in that chair. Oh, a little bit. I mean, she
I
had
feel like
nothing
Janet's mouth was moving. She just spoke like this. It's just like her lips moved a bit.
Oh, you could do a very good impression of Janet, can't you?
Yeah, my name's Janet and I've got a poltergeist inside of me. And my name's Bill and I've got hemorrhoids.
A hemorrhage.
Poor old Bill. I shouldn't wind it up.
No,
But yeah, the two sisters,
good.
man, they were up to all sorts. They just looking at each other, giggling. Yeah, Janet. Yeah. They're like, is he gonna knock now? No, sometimes he knocks, sometimes he doesn't. Like, oh, okay.
Like, one thing I don't think I got out of the documentary is basically, did it ever stop?
I don't know. That's what I mean. Did it ever stop? And if it didn't stop, why has no one got any footage? And it would always come back to that for me.
And can you go inside that house now?
I think someone's living in it.
So when you buy a house, they have to tell you, because the first thing, when I moved into this place, the first thing I said was, what happened to the previous owner? Were they murdered, or is this place haunted? Well, I need to know, and you need to tell me the truth, because I'm sorry, I ain't taking no risks.
And what was the answer?
Just laughed.
So he said, I need to know the answer, but no one told you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he said no, nothing like that. But then, how does he know?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, when we moved in here, we were told that the previous owner's wife died in that flat.
So what? Where? In yours?
But I just think it was natural causes, like.
Yeah, but she might not be done with you yet. Do you ever see the door slightly open at night?
No, I think it's okay. I've not felt any bad spirits. I think sometimes the dishwasher opens at night time and it gives me a fright. You know, and the dishwasher bangs open and you get woken up.
Do you never go for a little piddle and then all you hear is, hiya, hun? It's like the shower curtain like just slowly goes like that.
I'm not gonna lie, after I watched The Conjuring 2, when I went for a wee on my own, I was so scared because I just kept seeing that bloody clown, Mr. Crooked, clawing his way through the toilet. That just terrifies me.
So did I ever tell you about when I moved into this place, what the first thing I did was? I got holy water and I blessed it myself.
Yeah, you've got to do that.
And I still have it here. I've got my holy water from Lourdes.
Yeah.
I've only got a little bit left, because remember I couldn't sleep a couple of weeks ago because I was scared about something. So I went mental and I blessed everything. But I think I ended up blessing my yoga mat more than anything. So if all else fails, I'm just going to ride my yoga mat around like a magic carpet. I think that's going to protect me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the token thing. I've got a whiskey bottle of holy water in my food cupboard. Just gave the flat a quick bless and then keep it in there for if there's any strange activity.
God. I was literally about to say, who's behind you? And then I realised it's just your shadow of the chair. When you moved, I was like, oh, there.
Oh, yeah, look.
Imagine.
It's Bill.
What would you have done if I like turned around and was like, oh my god, who's standing behind you? Like there's a hand behind you.
It'll probably be James. He's like,
These are the things that they do with these movies. So now, after this Conjuring movie, there's going to be the third one, which is coming out this year, and it's called The Devil Made Me Do It. And it's basically about a guy who lost a whole 8 hours of his life, and he wakes up in prison, and he's like, where am I? And they're like, you're in prison for murder. And he was like, what? And he has no recollection of what happened.
that sounds like something that happened to me recently, actually. And
Did you murder?
I called the documentary Lambrini Made Me Do It.
And I bet you did a lot as well. Lambrini, that goes straight through.
Yeah, I woke up in prison. Apparently I'd murdered someone after a night of drinking Lambrini. So, yeah, it happens to the best of us. So I'm looking forward to seeing this.
And it's the best excuse as well.
Yeah, exactly. The devil don't make me do it. You don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So what's our final conclusion then on the Enfield Poltergeist for everyone? Fact, fiction, or fraud? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Right, let me do it again. Is it fact or fraud?
Fact or fraud?
I'm gonna
You
say,
go first.
I'm saying fact, only purely because there were too many witnesses and too many things. Like, going back to, because I think we've got to talk about the pictures that were captured, you know, of Janet flying across the road. Yeah, so those pictures look fake. That looks like she's just jumping from bed to bed, until I saw one picture where she was full like forward like that, and I was like, there is no way you can jump like that without, like, you get fear that you're going to smack your head on the edge of some bed. Like the way it was, she was like angled, and I think I'll try and get it up and show as we talk, but it was just like, it was just the way she was angled was not like a jumping kind of stance, whereas the others looked kind of like could jump. But that camera in that room was set up, bearing in mind, we have to remember this is 1970, we don't have all this fancy technology like we do now. They actually had cameras. So the reporter guy, had a camera ready to check for motion, and it was on a timer. So as soon as a sort of motion started, that's when it just started taking pictures like that. So it was just capturing odd moments of that all happening. So that was all one transparency of her going across, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas, and then there was all the pictures of them like lying on the floor. Like when you saw it, looked like they'd just fallen out of bed. That's me after a good few shandies on holiday, lying off the sun lounger.
Well, yeah, Club Tropicana, like
Exactly, cut la pina coladas.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be me tonight after one more of these and a bag of old chips.
Babes, me too. I can't wait. I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna say, Janet made me do it.
It was the poltergeist. Janet made me do it.
But and there was also a very weird image where there's a guy looking and she seems to be like on all fours, but it's just like in the air or something. He's got his hand on her like that. I'll see if I can find it as we talk. But
yeah,
I am 100% saying I think this is fact with a tiny bit of fraud, because I think they added extra elements in.
They sprinkled the fraud on the top.
Yeah, but I'm saying I'm saying fact because if the police didn't witness that, then I'd have been like, and the lollipop lady, I think the lollipop lady sold it to me when she saw her floating around the bedroom. It was just, there was too many things to make me think no. So I'm saying fact with a sprinkle of fraud. How about you, Hun? Hello? Are you there?
Can you see? Am I moving yet?
Yeah, you are now. I can't believe you just completely froze when I asked you what was your opinion.
I think that's because the poltergeist didn't want me to speak my truth. I'm actually feeling a presence with us right now.
I can see the presence behind you. There's a sleeve. No, other side.
I do feel a very strong
There it
presence
is.
here.
So what
That
do
was
you
scary.
think?
So what do I think? It's a hard one, and I'll try not to harp on too much because
No, hop on away, hun.
it's a hard one. So, you know, I don't ever want to take, you know, put people's beliefs down, and I don't ever want to say, you know, that there aren't, you know, I think there are spirits out there and there could be poltergeists, and the truth is out there. The only people know what happened is Janet and Margaret and Peggy. I think Peggy's dead now, isn't
Yeah,
she?
she passed away, but did she die in the same chair that Bill did? Because no, I actually think I read that, but didn't that come up at the end of the movie?
The furniture, it said that at the end of the movie that she died in the same chair, and they claim that all the furniture in the house was the original furniture that Bill owned because they bought the furniture when they moved into the house. I mean, that's pretty gross, but you know, you've got to do what you got to do when you've got no cash. So you know, there could be some truth to it, but that all said, I wasn't convinced by the young girls' reactions. I didn't think they looked genuinely terrified, and I believe if the Mirror, Channel 4, and the BBC were all involved, I can't believe that there was not a single piece of footage, because, you know, they did have cameras, they were recording their audio all the time, taking pictures. Why they didn't just put a camera in the bedroom while the girl slept, I don't know. That's just bizarre to me. So part of me feels like, you know, I know what Enfield's like. It's really small communities, especially in, like, you know, kind of council housing communities. You get people that they would have got in the goss. They would have known the newspapers came around. Of course they'd be going and went, yeah, I saw it too. I saw Janet floating on the bed. They'd probably getting their £10 worth, you know, getting a bag of chips of their cash. And even the police officers, they would have been part of that local community. And part of me thinks they were all in it for the media circus, and I don't blame the kids. I think that they obviously went through a really hard time, and something happened to those girls, and something traumatic happened to all of that family. And they, you know, obviously I felt like the girls were taken advantage of by the media because they kind of reported this one thing, and then you get all these crazy people coming and filming them for 14 months, but didn't really help them that much. So, rant of the day, I think it's fiction. Fraud, but not fraud on the family, fraud on the media. That's my conclusion.
Also, we're completely opposite then.
Well, we're completely opposite, but there might have been a poltergeist, but I'm not being funny. I don't think anyone from the Daily Mirror saw the goddamn poltergeist. They were just chatting BS.
What about the police officers?
I don't know. The Popo's always been corrupt. Look, I didn't feel the fear when I was watching the documentaries. I didn't feel like something wrong had happened.
Are you going to
But
say
the Bill
your prayers
thing,
tonight before bed?
yeah, because now I think, because I've put that out into the universe, Bill is hearing me disrespected.
He's right around the corner.
He's literally buried around the corner, so you don't know. But I don't know. Only Janet knows what happens. I mean, Janet got a jolly out of it. I mean, she got to go on the behind-the-scenes filming on the YouTube channel for The Conjuring 2. She was on set. She got all her makeup done. I mean...
Yeah, she was at the premiere.
She was at the premiere.
I mean,
yeah.
She got a bit, but the thing is, they apparently never made any money from the selling of that whole story. So it wasn't like a money game for them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe she got a nice new nightie instead of that red one, because they even kept the red nightie in the movie. That long red gown.
You know what, actually, though, what was more, you know, shocking about the whole thing was, you know, forgetting fact or fraud, they used Australian actors in the film. I was so excited for this film, and I was so ready for the, you know, Cockney accents coming through strong. Me and you, when we were kids, literally having our premiere in the film. And then you're like, all right, mate, there's a poltergeist. So I was thinking, what the fuck are you doing? Because American producers don't know the difference between British and Australian accents. It really pissed me off. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh no, and that's how Grace sees it, everyone. So, next up, I have 4 fingers. It's your lucky day, hun.
That's Bill's lucky day.
Yeah. Pick a number.
3.
Oh, the 3 is the Annabelle story.
Yes,
Ooh.
I'm so excited
We
for
are getting our
this.
Annabelle doll on. And
Yes,
we're probably going to be a bit more drunk than we were right now because I'm getting a bit tipsy.
Oh, yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
I feel like I'm getting a bit more like, oh, yeah. Come on, Bill.
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like this one cocktail is 10% and I am smashed. And that's
same.
why I got that rant about the Australian actors. That's when you know it's going downhill.
I'm hungry and I'm drinking. And that's when the loose lips start going. So
yeah, loose lips sink ships.
Exactly. Or raise them.
Yeah.
Right, until next time, horror fans, we have been the Horror Huns, and we will see you soon. I'm Kieran, and this is
Grace.
Until next time, Huns.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Oh, it's a poltergeist.